video, I am working with you guys on increasing to make those better decisions for your hair so that way you can have a better result for 2025. If you did not get the day one, you can go back and go watch that video. But to sum it up, you should be already figured out how much water for your intake that you need to be taking in, and you should also have you a journal, the action plan, pen, so that way we can get to the next part. So now I want you guys to think about one, what was the last hairstyles that you've had for the last 6 months? Because within 6 months, you should have seen a pretty significant change. Very significant to the point that you have noticed a decent amount of either hair texture change, hair length change, something that has done a massive change in this time frame. If you did not, you are the people that I am talking to in this video. If you've seen something to the point where you've had a change for the better and you like it, you are not here to be helped at this point, because you're not going to have the drive for what you need to keep going. If you feel like you have it, go ahead, we can keep going. But typically, those people do not have it to the point where they're going to push themselves to do the things that they need to do because they feel like what they've got already is enough. But if you really want the change, that is what we're doing next. And you're going to be looking for the hairstyles that you have worn within the last 6 months. Now, most of you have some type of selfies, pictures, things like that in your phone, so that way you can really write down what styles you had and the benefits to them, so that way you can be like, okay, I like this about this style, I didn't like this about the style. And you need to be honest as you are writing these things down, because this is going to help you figure out more of what you want for your hair. Everybody's goals is not the same. You need to figure out what you want for yourself, not based off of somebody else, because this is how we actually start figuring out what things we really need to change and what things we don't need to change. So within those 6 months, you'll look at the type of hairstyle you got, how long it was, how small the braids or how big they were. You want to start paying attention to those type of things, because that's really what's going to help us pick the next styles that you should be choosing going forward, so that way you are getting a better result and we're not going backwards. So typically what I have seen when I start this with people, it'll be, say for instance, they were getting uh well, they got so many different sizes and stuff now, but they are getting small box braids. I've even seen some that's still wearing the micro braids, since they've had those come out now, where you can get the micro extensions and stuff like that, but people are wearing them temporarily. They really wasn't getting it for locks. It was just cute. So yeah, write down all of that, all of the styles that you wore. Now, you want to keep note as far as like what size and how long they were, because those are minor changes that we can do for a style. So say for instance that the person was wearing those small ones and they really want to see more length retention in their styles going forward, they will be switching to something that is going to be either not so long, they're going to be switching for something that is going to be not so small, but it is slowly getting them out of their comfort zone. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's the goal here. We don't want to go so drastic. That's what we talked about in the last video. We really want things to be a small change that is going to help us make the change for the better, but at the same time, it's not making you feel so uncomfortable that you run backwards. So we want to be smart about it. We want to make better decisions, so that way we can make sure that we're getting a style that doesn't make us too uncomfortable, because everybody really can't do that. You have some people that can make a huge change, and then you have some people that cannot make a big change. And believe it or not, like, a lot of people, they be like, once they hear that I was in the military, they're like, oh well, this is why it's so easy for you. And that's a lie. It really is. There's a lot of people that were in the military and are still in the military, and they're not disciplined. They don't like massive, huge changes. Like, that's just typical on a human being. You have to make a smaller change to have something that is consistent. And even with military having discipline, that is something that we are taught. We don't come into the military having discipline, and it has to be taught. You have to learn it. You have to have your days that you're not so good, your days that you're better. You have to be able to document and see what's good and what's not. Because if you don't pay attention to that to make those changes, we ain't changing. So that's what we're doing here. So even though I've had that experience, even before that, I was always a person that I loved seeing something better. I loved being able to improve a thing or make it better. That's just always been a part of me with my art. I love drawing. Like, I love doing different things. Like, I'm a creative person, period. So there's times where I have to learn that this is something to be left alone. It is done. We are finished. And that is where we are at right now. So we are learning what we've used to being, the things we are used to wearing, and acknowledging that this part of it is just done. We've had our fun here. It is done. It is time to move forward. Or this is good enough here and it is okay with that. And we are fine to move forward. Learning to let go a little bit. Because that's another thing, when you are so used to a certain thing, you don't know how to let go. You don't know how to say, like, this is good enough. So that way you can see some progress. So pick out the styles that you have already done, that you feel like, okay, I've had all of these for the last 6 months. I know I like the fact that this was a full hairstyle. I like the fact that the color was good next to my skin. I love how it made my eyes look. We got those type of things together. And then we're going to see, like, okay, this was too small because around the edges, my edges did not do well with this style. I felt like if it was shorter, maybe it would have been better. So we are taking note of that as of today. So if you don't have your journal, get you a journal, piece of paper. If you're going to do piece of paper, attach each one that we're doing along the way, so that way you can keep up with what you're writing, because this is the point of having that journaling part. If you have the action plan, I talked a little bit more in detail about how the journaling process goes. I also talked about how the different styles and things, what could be better, what, all of that. So if you don't have the action plan, go ahead and get that. Get you a journal, piece of paper. Pretty much going through each one of these videos, by the end, the goal is to, one, have you something that you could be doing going forward that is change. Bring you some knowledge where you're like, okay, I can pinpoint for me what is working and what is not.